Naughty Dog has released a documentary, Grounded 2, an inside look at the development of The Last of Us Part 2. It's an engaging and rare behind-the-scenes look at Naughty Dog and how they operate. And this documentary, while focused mostly at looking at the past, actually contains some hints towards their future. And it's got me thinking about what Naughty Dog has in store, and in particular how everything we thought we knew about The Last of Us Part 3 is wrong. Dr. Pooplove here, and let's get right into it. So the major revelation we received was at the end of the documentary, where Neil Druckmann talks about the future of The Last of Us, and he shockingly reveals that the outline for The Last of Us Part 3's story is not yet written. And up until this point, we've been operating under the assumption from an interview with Neil that The Last of Us Part 3's outline was already written, because Neil admitted in this interview that he had an outline for a story that takes place after the events of Part 2. This story, however, was more so a smaller story about Tommy after the events of The Last of Us Part 2. Perhaps this would have been a DLC or a standalone title. Maybe it would offer some flashbacks to potentially the often requested Tommy's days in Seattle or even his early adventures with Joel. But also, of course, be an exploration of how he continues on after essentially ruining his marriage and his life in pursuit of revenge. Certainly there's an interesting story to be told there, but that isn't meant to be a full-blown Part 3. And Neil revealed that this project apparently was shelved, but may see the light of day someday. And so what this means is that The Last of Us Part 3, at least as of April 2023, when this documentary interview took place, is only in the concepting stage. It's an idea, but it's not something that's written yet. And this implies so much. First of all, this means that the single player that Naughty Dog had been working on this whole time is not The Last of Us. And it also isn't Uncharted. Neil has in the past admitted that Naughty Dog has moved on from that IP. And there are rumors that another studio, the Visual Arts Service Group, is actually working on a new Uncharted with some Naughty Dog support. And so yeah, this single player experience is a new IP with a new world and new characters, something we haven't gotten from Naughty Dog in a long time. And with the cancellation of factions, which yes, don't worry, we'll be talking about that. But with this cancellation, it's no doubt that this new IP is full steam ahead with all hands on deck and is perhaps closer than we think. And so all this also implies that The Last of Us Part 3 is a long ways away, especially if it's only in the concept stage at this point. And while yes, this is probably true, there is a chance it does end up coming together faster than we think. Because, well, Naughty Dog had been developing a Last of Us title for the past 4 years or so. Of course, I'm talking about the canceled Factions project, or The Last of Us Online as they were calling it. This was my most anticipated game ever, and it was set to take place in a post-apocalyptic San Francisco with its own story and characters and lore. And so with this cancellation, it seems likely that much of that dev work, any new gameplay mechanics they had made, and especially the creation of a whole city with its own lore and factions will likely now be shoehorned into at least part of The Last of Us Part 3. And because the story hasn't been solidified yet for this game, well, now they just have to make sure part of it takes place in San Francisco. And having all that on hand would certainly accelerate some of the development of this title. And so because of that, maybe they will be able to deliver it sooner than it may seem at this point. Of course, though, all this kind of further just spits on the faces of Factions fans, doesn't it? Rather than letting us have a multiplayer experience, Naughty Dog may be taking all that work and converting it into a single player. And so as we play The Last of Us Part 3, going through any parts of San Francisco, we'll be constantly getting reminded of the game we will never have. But maybe there is a chance for redemption. If Naughty Dog designs The Last of Us Part 3 using Factions 2's assets, why can't they also include whatever Factions 2 was as a separate mode in that game? It could just be part of that package. And maybe it makes more sense to include that with The Last of Us Part 3 than with The Last of Us Part 2 remastered, because the city in which the multiplayer and the single player take place would be the same. It's hard to know if this would actually happen, but with continued calls for factions, even after it being canceled, and the desire for the no return mode to have co-op, one thing is clear: people do want to experience the world of The Last of Us together. It's something that I hope the studio can see and not give up on. At least the Naughty Dog I grew up on and the Naughty Dog portrayed in this documentary, Grounded 2, didn't give up on things. But it's hard to know where the studio is in the present. It's possible that they might deliver this with Part 3, but it's not something I can hold my breath for. Regardless though, a new IP is on the way, hopefully pretty soon. And The Last of Us Part 3, regardless of how far away it is definitely coming. And it's something that Neil has said will have a through line connecting all 3 parts, and hopefully will end up bringing a satisfying conclusion to this story. And it will hopefully include some of the new lore that The Last of Us TV show has brought us, like the origins of Ellie's immunity, which I go over in this video, which you should check out. And I want to say a special thank you to my YouTube members who are keeping my poop dreams alive. But otherwise, so long, Pooper Troopers.